I'm Vicki Hogarth and welcome to Southwest Magazine. Sergeant Scott MacKenzie will retire after over 30 years in Charlotte County this fall. He is joining us to look back at his career today. Thank you so much for sitting down with me today, Sergeant MacKenzie.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
I want to start off by talking, obviously you're such a familiar face to so many of us, but I don't actually know your entire life story. So tell us a little bit about what drew you to being part of the RCMP in the first place.
It was always something that I had been drawn to as a kid. It kind of started, I think, in junior high, that I had an interest in joining the RCMP. And then in high school, we had a family friend that was a RCMP officer in Bible Hill, Nova Scotia, and just my connection with Guy and getting to meet him and know him, just increased my desire to be an RCMP officer. How
did you end up right here in Southwest New Brunswick? You're from Truro.
Yep, born and raised in Truro, Nova Scotia. Kind of a long route. After high school, went to St. Evex University, obtained a Bachelor of Arts in History and Political Science. From there, my then girlfriend at the time, current wife, we moved out to Regina where she was continuing her education. And we were living in Saskatchewan when I was actually hired by the RCMP. Initially, for the first almost 7 months, I was sent on language training in Montreal to learn French at the Public Service French School in downtown Montreal. Following that, we were shipped out to Regina for our 6-month basic RCMP training, and then posted to St. Andrews coming out of depot.
And you've been here for how many years now? It's over 3 decades.
It was 30 years in January that I arrived in St. Andrews as a member of the St. Andrews Detachment.
Wow. So when you look back at over 30 years in the RCMP, what have been some of the changes you noticed with time? I know now we have things like body cameras, but how has the role itself changed and adapted over the years?
There's been a lot of changes that especially the timeline that I've been in the RCMP from 1993 to the present day. For example, I started with a .38 revolver. Within a year of being out in the field, we then transitioned to the 9mm pistol. Over my career, I've seen the introduction of the conductive energy weapons, the CEWs, tasers, for lack of a better term. I've seen the introduction of the patrol carbine rifles that are now equipped in our cars, the body-worn cameras, the 40mm less lethal guns that we have. So there's been a huge change in introduction, hard body armor. There's been a lot of changes to not only the gear that we wear and carry, but the police cars and computers in the cars that have GPS. All our calls are dispatched directly to the computers in the cars, like you would see on TV, that sort of stuff. We can run driver's license and check individuals via the computers in the cars. All the traffic tickets are all e-ticketing. It's printed right in the car on thermal paper, a little printer in the car, mounted in the car. So there's been a lot of changes that I've seen in the 30 plus years of my career.
And it's neat to have you to speak with someone who's been, stationed right here too for over 30 years. So have you also noticed issues take shape or change over those 3 decades as well? Have there been things that maybe are more important to look at now that weren't so much so maybe 10 years ago?
Not a lot of changes. Like there's always change with society and with in 30 years there's been lots of changes to Southwest New Brunswick. But for the most part, it's pretty well the same. We have the same issues and the same things that we deal with day to day, and a few different drugs have added a different dynamic to policing and to our society and to our region as a whole.
And I suppose too, you would have also faced the introduction of the internet, so you have things like online scams as well, and things that maybe when you started your career never would have been a reality.
Yeah, exactly. Like for example, when I started, we had paper files. So all of our files were handwritten and just stacks of paper. As we added more reports, they were added, and then within about a year of me being in St. Andrews, the introduction of electronic filing systems. When I first started, we didn't even have email at the detachment. So within about a year and a half, of me starting, we had the introduction of the electronic files. We were then on email. There was no internet at the office. There was, I remember getting my first, computer that had internet access, but we had none of that at the office. So yeah, there's been a lot of changes from that side of it.
It is a weird thing even for me to say to the younger people here. I remember getting my first email address in, I think, university.
Yeah, we didn't even have telephones in the cars. Like I remember obtaining the first bag cell phones for the 2 patrol cars that were assigned to St. Andrews. And they were the old Motorola bag phones that you plugged into the cigarette lighter. And so we've transitioned from that into the little flip phones, and now RCMP issued smartphones and et cetera.
What's it like, though, to be this familiar face? We all know you, not just as Sergeant MacKenzie. I almost said Scott when we started because
that's
you
fine.
are.
Scott is my name. Scott is my name. Sergeant is my rank. So that's
in my professional setting, I'm saying Sergeant MacKenzie, but
Scott
we do know you as Scott. You are such a familiar face. I can recognize you in your streetwear and say hello. What is it like to be that person of authority in this community, but also a neighbor to so many as well?
It is important, because we recognize we wanted to stay in this area. And it was very important for me to be connected to the community, to not only be Scott the Mountie, but Scott the neighbor, Scott the coach, Scott the friend. So it can be a difficult balance, but it is important to understand that we are members of these communities, the communities that we serve, and obviously I've been in this community longer than most, and that most members stay in communities. So it was important to, be part of the community and for people to see me outside of wearing the uniform, on a day-to-day basis. And
what are the challenges when you are covering a rural area like this one? I know we are complicated also by having the ocean right at our doorstep with islands and whatnot, but what is it like being an RCMP in a community that is so rural and in some cases so spread out for your coverage?
Yeah, the issue for rural policing is just distance. We are obviously, we have urban areas, St. Andrews, St. Stephen, St. George, Macadam, and such. But for the most part, we are a rural area. We're not a large rural area. If you look at other parts of Canada, like the prairie provinces, their detachment areas are much larger. But even our small corner of the world and of New Brunswick, distance is our struggle. Just because of we can't be everywhere at once, and it just creates the time of getting to a call, getting to a certain area, because just the drive time, and it's not like municipal forces who have a very small area, and if you put X amount of police officers in that small area, it doesn't take them very long to get to those calls. But if you take those same amount of officers and then you expand the area they cover tenfold, then it just naturally takes longer depending on where we have to go to and what we have to do.
I'm sure it's almost 32 years under your belt. You've seen many things. I know that I have so much respect for things you probably had to witness that some of us can only ever imagine, but you've probably seen some pretty powerful things about small communities as well. Does that stick out to you when you look back on your time here about, obviously there's been hard topics, hard issues to cover, but it's also a pretty resilient and special part of the world too. It is.
And what jumps out for me, I guess if you were to say like one thing that over my career and that I've taken a lot of pride in and enjoyed tremendously, and I'll be frank, is July 1st. July 1st in St. Andrews. I've marched in majority, if not all, of the, and this will be my last one this coming July, in a couple weeks. That is been a true honor. To represent the RCMP and represent Canada at the huge event that it is. I remember my very first year, and you're the young guy fresh out of depot, and you still know how to march, and your surge still fits and all that stuff, and you're marching. And it just the pride in the organization, the pride in the uniform, the pride in what we do. That's what it just shows you how people appreciate what we do. We're not perfect. Police officers are human. We don't get it right all the time, but we strive to get it right. and it is very proud, and it is a very strong feeling of pride when you walk down Water Street, and there are, thousands of people clapping for you and the veterans and the cadets and et cetera, as you walk down there, and that's that. I would say that, along with my work with the youth, the coaching that I did over the years, whether for the most part was hockey, a little bit of soccer off and on, but hockey was my big thing. Both my boys played hockey, and on top of July 1st would be my interaction with the involvement with the youth, whether coaching or just being involved in the schools. When I worked in St. Andrews in the early 2000s, I came back after spending 6 years in St. Stephen, and then a couple of years in St. George, and came back to St. Andrews in around 2003. And I was heavily involved with the elementary school and with the high school. I'd stop into the high school at lunch hour and stuff like that, and then teaching classes and just interacting with the youth, just getting to know the youth, which is very important for community policing, but especially that relationship between the youth and police. I remember the first few times I walked into the high school at lunchtime, the looks on the faces from the kids, and you could almost hear the wheels turning in their heads, like, okay, who's getting arrested? And my wife and I are good friends with Dave and Leslie O'Leary, the principals, and I would come in and talk to Dave, and then I would just kind of wander the hallways. And then after about a few days or a week or two, and I was just a routine. They didn't even look twice as I would walk through the halls, stop in the classrooms where they were kind of congregating on their lunch hours, or go down to the cafeteria and just sit and chat. And a lot of the kids were kids that I knew through their families or other stuff. But for them, and then talking to them at the youth center, I would stop in there on shift, and having the opportunity for them to meet a police officer, know a police officer on a personal level, to realize that we're humans too. We have interests. We have, whether it's music, or I'm a kind of a sci-fi nerd, and to sit and chat with kids about the latest Star Wars movie or whatever the case may be. So they see that it's like, wait a minute, I like this, and this person and this police officer likes this as well. Is to see that rather than just that head and shoulders drive by in the police car, and to get them to know us on a personal level, I think is huge. That if you ever do have to deal with those youth, the youth, or an adult for that matter, if they know you as a person, it makes it easier if you have to deal with them professionally, and that you have that mutual respect.
I do feel that way about all the RCMP officers I know. I think I know everyone on a first name basis, and not just through work. It really is from community. Having been able to see that through your coaching and your work as an RCMP officer, that influence and that impact that you can make on the youth, you must have seen it go through the years as you watch these kids grow up too. And what kind of impact did you see it having in terms of their understanding of what your role is, and their ability to not maybe see it as someone they should fear?
Yeah, and that was very important. And I would see it as the years went on, and especially with my last stint coaching was with the high school team here at Sir James Dunn, and that's I think the last year I coached there was when my youngest was in grade 12. So it had been a few years, after that a few years, but then my players would come back to town, or would be around them, whether they went off to university or some joined the military or whatever, and then having that opportunity to sit and talk with them. Maybe I've gone into a local restaurant at times, and some of my former players were there. They're now legal drinking age, and they're at the bar, and we'd sit down and let's have a chat. So it's stuff like that really, because it's those lifelong relationships that you create, and for them to say, okay, that it's Scott. RCMP is secondary. That I know him as Scott. I know him as my coach or a friend or whatever the case may be. But RCMP is secondary. And and there have been times when I've had to help or deal with somebody on a professional level, and that having that bond allows us to have that to kind of take the edge off. Sometimes it's like they know who they're talking to. We have that respect, and we can we'll work this out.
Now, I know you are staying in Charlotte County.
We are.
Can we expect to see more coaching? What will you be doing in your retirement?
I think my coaching days are done. As much as I thoroughly enjoyed it, it was a large time commitment, as you can expect. I'm very involved with Ground Search and Rescue. I'm a member of the Charlotte County Ground Search and Rescue, involved in their training committee as such, and I'll be continuing as a member of the team as a volunteer. So I'll be doing that. That'll take up a lot of my time, as well as I've got some other stuff that I'm looking at, whether it's volunteering with it's Nature Conservancy, doing some trail maintenance and just helping out, that sort of thing. But I've got a few ideas of different things, and I've also possibly looking at the reserve program with the RCMP, just to work casually, just to fill in shifts and maintain that connection with the local detachments. And if they have a shift that's open, they need overtime, then I'm available and stuff like that. So I'm looking at stuff like that. So.
I love that you were doing the show about your retirement only to announce that you are available. When you look back on your career, though, I will call you Scott now, because this is how, this is what I would say if we were in the grocery store. And I look forward to seeing you more in your free time going forward too. But when you look back on your career, are there moments that stand out to you, things that you're proud of, or things that will stay with you always?
As a police officer, we see and deal with a lot of stuff that obviously will stay with me for the rest of my life. But proud, it's just being able to help people. Again, my involvement with the youth, helping someone that needs help, whether it's helping a victim of domestic violence or someone that's been in a car accident. I was one of the first two officers on scene. There was a motor vehicle accident involving one of the junior hockey players a number of years ago, out north of St. Stephen, and myself and another officer were the first police officers on scene, and ended up doing C-spine on this young individual, and as the paramedics arrived, and then he was carted off to the hospital, luckily survived, and stuff like that. But just being able to help people in their time of need I think that's why most people anyone gets involved in policing. But just being able to help people and in their time of need. And as I said, I thoroughly enjoyed my involvement with the youth and stuff like that, and volunteering. I
honestly wouldn't be surprised if you also inspired people to go down a similar career path as well. When you are speaking with new recruits, or if there are new recruits watching today, what would be your best advice for them about this career path? Because as much as you've been able to do so much good, I imagine it's trying at times too. It's quite a heavy career. It is.
The last 6 months to a year, we've had 5 to 6 new members arrive from depot, and as the sergeant, whether it's myself or Sergeant Henderson on the east side, when these members come in, we will generally sit down, have that welcome talk. This is who I am. This is the expectations. But one of the things I've made a point of telling them is to take care of yourself. Especially, I've done my whole career in general duty, wearing frontline policing. So is to take care of yourself, because you will be involved in a lot of situations which the majority of people should never be involved in, or won't be involved in. Is to take care of yourself. And the RCMP has made great strides over the last number of years in the mental health programs and programs that are out there to take care of us mentally. It's not just a physical injury, whether we trip and fall and twist an ankle or break a leg, or and a tussle with an individual, a physical injury. But there's also the mental side of it. It's an injury as well. So to take that time and to say, when you are involved in something, there are people that are willing to talk. The programs are there. And that myself as a sergeant or the corporals, and that our door is always open. If you need to talk, come talk to us. We will get you in touch with the appropriate resources. But to take care of yourselves, because it is a hard career. The hour, especially for street level constables and stuff, like shift work and working until the wee hours in the morning, getting called out, and the long, if something's happening, we just can't up and go home. So we may, the extended hours of dealing with stuff that it is not easy, but just to make sure that they take care of themselves. So when their career is ending, when they get to the end of their career, that they are good physically, mentally, that their family is good, and to understand that being, if you're married or have kids, is it's not easy on them as well. Mm-hmm. But to take care of you and your family as well as taking care of the community.
I have to express my gratitude for how open you've always been with me, how anytime I've asked for an interview, you've made yourself available. I can say the same about your coworkers, who actually are all of you proactive about coming and doing these long format talks with me about all the issues going on in the community, scams to look out for, and it's just been a wonderful relationship that we at CHCO have had with the local RCMP. It's been really special, and I'm so grateful for it. I know it will continue with your coworkers, which is why I have to ask what you will miss most about them. I'm sure you will still be friends, but
yes.
What will you miss most about people like Staff Sergeant Jeff Peters, Chris Henderson, people that you see every day?
That is, as the days get closer to my retirement, it is the people that I'm going to miss. It is wearing the uniform, but most importantly is going into the office and the people that I see on a day-to-day basis. For myself and St. Stephen, the two girls that work in my office, Denise and Gail, who are my family away from home. And they do so much for me, and we do so much for each other. Chris and Jeff, Chris, I have to say, Chris was in grade 12 when I started. So that kind of puts everything in perspective. So I've known Chris since I arrived, because he was graduating high school when I first started. So we've had a long history together. And Jeff Peters, I knew when he's from St. Stephen, but when he was working up north, when he would come home, he would stop at the detachment. So I had the pleasure of knowing Jeff for a long time as well. So I'm going to miss those relationships and the camaraderie of the family that is policing. It's not just the RCMP, it's whatever police force that we work for. We are a family, and because of the job that we do and what we have to deal with, and putting our lives on the line, with the Monktons, the Mayor Thorpes, and as such, but the camaraderie and the family that we are, and especially the RCMP family. Obviously, I'm joining the Veterans Association, and obviously going to stay connected with the local detachments upon retirement. But the day-to-day going into the office, seeing the guys, as the teams come in and change from day to day, which team is on day shift today, and those bullpen conversations. We kind of jokingly had a supervisor once called it bullpen therapy. Is that the laughing and joking in the bullpen. Just winding down and just enjoying each other's company, and that's, I will really miss that.
I have to ask, because you really truly have seen it all, the good, the bad, the ugly about this part of the world, and you are staying here, calling this your home. What do you take away about Charlotte County from all you've seen? And I know that some has been really hard, but it must paint a picture to you of a place that you truly love.
Yeah, and my wife and I realized very quickly, early on, that this was a spot of an amazing part of the world, amazing part of the country, amazing part of New Brunswick, and that we were lucky and blessed to have been posted here as our first posting. And because of our love of not just St. Andrews, but the whole area, it's so different, the dynamics of the different communities that, we have St. Andrews, the little resort town, and then we have the industrial hub, we'll call it St. Stephen, and then the aquaculture hub down in St. George, Grand Manan, the islands, which add a whole dynamic to the area. It's just such a great part of the world and part of the province, and there's a lot of amazing, wonderful people here. We happen to land in St. Andrews, but we are Charlotte Countyers. Both my boys, granted, they were born at the St. John Regional. Grew up, went to school in St. Andrews in Charlotte County, went to university in New Brunswick in Fredericton, but we recognized that this was an amazing part of the world, and hence why we stayed and are intending to stay even longer. So.
Well, I know you have a few months left, a little more than a few months left of your time with the RCMP, so it is my honor and a privilege to say thank you for your service and thank you for your ongoing friendship. I can't wait to see more of you. My guest today has been Sergeant Scott MacKenzie, who is retiring from the RCMP after 32 years this fall. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Thank you for watching Southwest Magazine.
Southwest Magazine is a news and public affairs production of CHCO Television.